Hello guys, welcome back. Now I wanted to talk about whether or not it is worth pulling SPATHODEA, yes or no, what are the circumstances, when is no, when is yes. Okay, so first of all, when do you pull for SPATHODEA? You should be pulling for SPATHODEA if you need a beast DPS, and even if you have one like Melania, if it's like mental, then you can still argue to get SPATHODEA because she's reality, so you can choose to one depending on the enemy defense, okay? But if you don't have any beast DPS, you should pick one, okay? You need to have one man carry a Flatus so you can actually properly play the game, because UTU, right? And the raids as well. Now, if you are free to play and you're pulling for SPATHODEA P0, then you also have to commit yourself for the future. What does that mean? Even if you're not free to play, you need to be able to pick up Isolde. Now, if you pick up SPATHODEA, Isolde becomes part of your shopping list for the future. So keep that in mind, because if you don't pick Isolde, SPATHODEA is going to permanently be weird to play unless you are playing with ULU, which is not like the greatest choice in the world, especially after Isolde is out. Still works, but if you don't pick up Isolde, you are nerfing yourself, you are griefing yourself, okay? So SPATHODEA, the problem with SPATHODEA is the 15 stacks that you need to have whenever you're attacking the monster with your ult, otherwise the second part of the ult doesn't trigger. On top of that, you need to crit. So you need to have crit enabling characters, which Isolde is one, Tooth Fairy, or run a side tube that gives you more crit with the resonance with more crit. Now, the problem with the burn gets resolved completely with Isolde, but if you don't have Isolde, you can use ULU as well. You can use ULU to play. ULU at I3 makes it so every time the turn starts, is it the start? Yes. Every time the turn starts, she applies AoE. She does an AoE automatic at the start of the turn and applies 3 stacks of burn to everybody, okay? And that helps a little bit, but keep in mind that the burn is really hard to keep up, because every time the burn triggers, so every turn, the stack, whatever stack you had, gets depleted in half. So if you have 30 stacks, it's going to go to 15. If you have 15 stacks, it's going to go to 7, etc. Right? If you have 7, it goes to 3. It doesn't round to the higher number. It rounds to the lower number. Okay, just so you know. So it's gonna be a pain to get 15 stacks if you have SPATHODEA alone, or if you have ULU that is not I3, or if you don't get ULU for whatever reason, you get SPATHODEA, get lucky, but you don't get ULU copies. Now it's gonna be a big problem. You're gonna have, she still works, but it's gonna you're gonna need 2, 3, 4 turns sometimes to get to your ult at 15 stacks. You need to use your pre-ignition constantly, never attack, and then try to mix your cards without using them, your punches without using them until 5 Moxie, and then do some lineup with a normal punch before the ult, so that way the normal punch is going to apply the pre-ignition stacks, so you're going to have the 15 or more stacks of burn that you prepared so far, and then you attack and the ult gets the hit on the 15 stacks that are already there. So you need to do a punch before the ult for that to count. And it's a pain in the ass. So that's for P0. I used her P0 for a long time before I got Isolde. So I know what I'm saying because I did it. So it's not impossible to play. You can play with her without anybody else. Even if you don't like to, you don't want to use ULU because you know that you're going to replace ULU. And so like some people are saying in some of the videos that you need ULU, right? Sure, that's partially true, but I kind of disagree in the sense of long term, right? Because you can still use SPATHODEA alone. It's going to be a little more cringe to set up, but you can set up, it works, and she deals a lot of damage. So do you want to do that, or do you want to level up a character to I3, which you will then be discarding in the future whenever you get Isolde, right? You don't use ULU and Isolde. Isolde is going to give you so much burn that ULU is going to be useless. You might as well use someone else with them, right? Like another healer, or if it's a 4-man, use like someone else, right? Like any other reality support or 6, right? So I partially disagree. I agree with the sentiment of like using ULU, because early on for the next 2 months before Isolde comes, you might want a little more burn going on, but you can use SPATHODEA without ULU. So you might argue that you don't want to, as a free-to-play especially, because you don't have all of these materials coming to you. You need to wait. You don't want to waste the mats, and this one will eventually become a waste whenever Isolde comes, right? So keep that in mind. It's really important. So that said, you can use ULU to make the 15 stacks easier, but that doesn't really change too much in gameplay wise. What do I mean by that? Sure, ULU is going to debuff, is going to give you I think it's 15 damage up on the ult and 15% damage taken on the ult, and it's doubled if the enemy has 15 stacks, which is the problem that we're trying to solve. So how, like, who knows how often we're gonna do that? We're gonna be able to do that double buff. So it's gonna be 15% damage dealt, which is something that, you know who can give you that even more? Bicorn. Bicorn can give you that. 6 can give you that. So would you use Bicorn that you already built? Would you rather use Bicorn or 6 or or like even Medicine Pocket, or like if you don't have crit problems? Or would you rather waste materials for i3 ULU so that way you can get a little more burn? You know why? The burn is not going to be insane, because it's 3 burns. Plus, it's 1, 2, or 3 stacks depending on the rarity of the card burn on the enemy when you do the debuff with ULU. So that is not going to change the gameplay that you're gonna have to do with SPATHODEA without Isolde, which is going to be you trying to speedrun the pre-ignition stacks on the buffs, trying to use your buff as soon as possible, mix the card, rush the Moxie, right? And then do the ult. Now, this, if you don't do that, because now you think that you're fine because you have ULU, ULU is going to do 3 every turn, which means that every turn, those 3, 1 is going to be kept, right? 1 burn is going to be kept per turn, besides the first one. So you need to line up and prepare. Either way, if you have ULU or not, you're gonna have to prepare. And if you're trying to speed run by using debuffs with ULU, it's going to be not as good, in my opinion. This is in my mind. I didn't try it myself because I refused to level up ULU, right? So think about it. You're going to have to speedrun SPATHODEA's ult. You can do that in maybe 2 turns if you're lucky on the first cards and you are able to restart the match to fish for cards. I think I did it on stream and it was like 2 turns, maybe 3. And why? Because you need the cards to mix. You need the buffs to be played. So by mixing the cards and playing the buffs, it means that she is extremely AP unfriendly, AP hungry, right? She's extremely AP hungry, which means that you don't have space for ULU to do her little things, her little debuffs, right? She only has 1 debuff and applies 1 burn if it's level 1 incantation. 1 burn? Really? Right? And then the buff on the ult, which is doubled if you have 15 stacks, which you're not gonna have, it's 15%, which can be the same if you're using other characters, okay? I am choking. So characters like Bicorn Bloom can easily replace ULU, in my opinion, because you're getting utility with the stun, with the Moxie -2 if they're immune, and you're also getting nice debuffs that are basically the same as the ULU's ult, but as a card. So now you have all the time to rush SPATHODEA ult and then like chuck 1 card right at the end, because you have 3 AP for 3 man, right? So you can do 1 debuff with Bicorn, or do it the turn before, and then do buff or debuff with Bicorn, punch and ult, and now you're doing a nice lineup. So that's what I think, right? I don't want to yap too much, but this is a delicate argument and I'm going a little bit against the current at the moment. That's why I wanted to yap a little more, but let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree with this. But yeah, SPATHODEA is worth pulling, but you need to be careful on what you're doing with your pulls, especially if you're free to play, and also with your materials. If you're wondering like whether to pull to use ULU or not, depending on what you have. If you have 6 and Bitcoin, I don't think it's a good idea. But feel free to argue to me in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.